How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So let's take a little bit of a look at the Wowhead Economy Weekly Wrap-Up. Now, for those that are frequent to the channel, you may have noticed that I've not published this on YouTube for a little while. This is mainly because I tend to live stream it. Although, it's festive week, it's Christmas week this week, so I'm busy for a lot of this week, so I've decided to not stream this week, focus on a few YouTube videos for you guys. We'll be back to live streaming next week. That's maybe where some of the shameless promo can come in. If you want to catch us when we are live, we're over at twitch.tv/Manthieus, the best goal-making live stream without question. But anyway, let's dive straight into this. Let's take a little look at see what we've got to work with this week's WoW Economy Weekly Wrap-Up. Like we do most of the time, though, we always give a big shout-out to Samadan. He's the one that puts the time and the effort into creating this little piece of content for Wowhead each and every week. Make sure you go check him out over on his channel or his Twitch channel as well. So what have we got to play with this week, then? Well, Mage Tower is still doing business. Mage Tower is still popping off, that is for sure. The Mage Tower is a fantastic example of the gold-making economy in action and supply and demand working together to flow gold from one player to another. The spike in interest in multiple old world professions saw a huge spike in demand for production. This led to a demand in farmed items and so on and so on. Yeah, the Mage Tower is still proving to be a little bit of a gold mine for those people that are aware of what's going on with it. So I would say the crafting side of the opportunities are getting a little bit slimmer now. We're starting to see the margins get squeezed as more people realise that, well, the Mage Tower is still here for a little while. People are still pumping their way through it, or at least trying to, as it is quite difficult content. More and more people are seeing the opportunities to make some gold from this. It only takes one person, you know, to spend a few thousand gold, tens of thousands of gold, maybe even hundreds of thousands of gold on some gear for their own character to realise that, well, maybe they can be doing that themselves, and they dig out those old crafters and they get to work. But some opportunities are still there for both crafters and farmers to make a little bit of gold from this event. It's still going on until the I think it's the first week in January. We've still got about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer on the Mage Tower, so there's still opportunities ahead. Exotic leather is one that we've focused on a few times so far on the channel. I even went as far as putting out a little exotic leather farming guide, which in turn, it's not really the exotic leather you need, it's the magnificent hide, but you take 50 exotic leather to turn it into a magnificent hide. You can do it on the cheap. You can convert only 20 exotic leather into a magnificent hide, but you can only do that once a day, so it doesn't really work too much at scale. But places like Valley of the Four Winds or the Turtles on the Windward Isle over in Jade Forest, good little farming spots. Another option that's been made quite popular is that there is the Spirit of Harmony vendor. You can convert Spirit of Harmony into many different Mr. Pandaria based materials. There's a vendor in the Vale of the Eternal Blossoms. Now, the location of the vendor is going to differ depending on whether you're Horde or Alliance, but in the main city area in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, you can trade your Spirits of Harmony. The conversion is about 20 materials, I think you usually get for a single Spirit of Harmony, so you can do some maths. If Spirit of Harmony is cheap, consider picking some up, turning it into the materials that you then need to do some crafting. Both Xanthid and Anchorweed are proving to be popular. The Battle for Azeroth herbs are used in an awful lot of the potions and flasks for the Mage Tower. It seems really weird to me that BFA flasks and potions are the ones that are the most lucrative for Legion content. You would assume that either Shadowlands ones scaled down or Legion ones just at their normal would be at their best, but no, there's a middle ground in there somewhere, and it turns out that the BFA stuff is actually the stuff people are after. For the gems, for all of those gear, people are trying to get as many gem sockets on their gear as possible. Some primal diamonds are needed for the Pandaria stat gems. Alchemy cooldown daily for cheap jewel crafting for more expensive but a mass route. What does Samadan mean by that? You can use I suppose you can do it once a day. Yeah, sure. If you're... See, anything that's linked to a daily cooldown is not really too effective because it's a very time-sensitive event anyway. The event only goes on for a couple of weeks, so there's even more reason to try and capitalize on it as fast as you can. Reverting to daily cooldowns is maybe something to get into the routine of, clicking that daily cooldown button for your professions to get your materials that little bit cheaper. But for, if you're really trying to pump the Mage Tower from a gold making perspective right now, you just want lots of stuff to be crafting and selling. Yes, leatherworking is the cooldown as well. Actually, the crafted Dreadful Gladiator gear is all discovered through this daily cooldown. So if you're one of those players that they dug out their old leatherworker, their old tailor, their old blacksmith to craft some of this gear, even when the Mage Tower event disappears, get into the routine of pressing that daily cooldown, then it means that next time the Mage Tower comes, you'll have a much bigger list of recipes to pull from. Nothing's going to change between this Mage Tower and the next time that we see it come about, so maybe if you weren't fully prepared this time, get prepared for next time. But yeah, Mage Tower is doing pretty well, and there was one aspect of the Mage Tower that people are really trying to sort of figure out and min-max, and we've even seen some steady supply of nerfs from Blizzard on this, is the Trinkets. Trinkets usually have some weird and interesting powers or abilities to them that will scale differently to just normal stats. And so one thing that's jumped out is the Ghost Iron Dragonling. This is a trinket that you may notice has cogwheel sockets instead of regular gem sockets. So you can't put normal gems in there. You also need yourself an engineer to be making the cogwheels for this. But this isn't even where this little trinket shines. This little trinket shines from the little Ghost Iron Dragonling that spawns. It only lasts for 20 seconds, but it does a ridiculous amount of damage. And considering a lot of these Mage Tower events are less damage focused and more mechanical fights, you're usually very tunnel focused on the mechanics so that you don't get one shot. But this little dragon pops out and he goes and does a whole bunch of damage and helps chip away at those health pools of the enemies, which is a really cool little one. I wouldn't be surprised if it will also get hit by the nerf back, because it's doing, in some cases, 20% of people's damage, which is a little bit ridiculous for a trinket, for one little trinket. But this is the fun of the Mage Tower. This is what I quite like. It gives people an excuse to go back out there to hunt down all of these old trinkets, maybe dig them out of their guild banks, test them out, see which ones work, which ones are useful. And it's just kind of quite cool that all this old content is being revisited again. There's 15 years, 17 years. We've just had WoW's 17th birthday, haven't we? So there's 17 years of content in this game. And it always frustrates me that anything further than, 12 months ago is almost considered just null and void. It's kind of cool to see. There's a little video that goes with this. It's actually a section out of another video, the Holy Paladin Mage Tower walkthrough, but it focuses on the Ghost Iron Dragonling a little bit. Worth looking at that snippet of the video, even if you're not a Holy Paladin. So that was really the Mage Tower side of things. Mage Tower is doing things. If you're into your gold making, you should have some. There's still some opportunities. There's nowhere near as many opportunities with the gold for gold making with the Mage Tower as there was right at the very beginning, but it's still pretty good. Let's move on though. Let's move on to the principles of gold making. DallarGG's put together a great little video and a write-up on some of the principles of gold making. This is something that I tried to cover quite a lot on my channel. I prefer to steer away from sort of, go out and kill this mob, farm this material. I like they're the kind of those kind of videos, that kind of content is good in its own right, but it doesn't really teach people how to walk on their own 2 feet. It's almost as if somebody's handed you the answer, and you know, then you get a small short win off it, maybe, possibly. But if you actually start to understand how the economy in the game works, some of the principles behind goal making, then you learn a lot more. Maybe not straight away, but long term you do. Now, I'm not going to do a full overview of the video here, but we will take a quick look at some of the write-up for it. So one of the first things is the cycle. So when it comes to markets in the game, you can usually see that there's a cycle that takes place. This can be due to multiple factors, whether that is an influx of different items, patch releases, increasing in sales and gear and raiding supplies. So the raid is a big one. You usually find that when a new raid releases, there's a huge spike in demand for just everything. Consumables, flasks, enchants, gems, potions, all of that sort of stuff. There's a huge demand spike for those. But then obviously once everybody's worked their way through the raid and they've progressed through it, it tends to taper off again. And that cycle goes around every time there's a big event in the game. The obvious one is, of course, the raids. You want to try and take advantage. If you can, you want to try and see what's going to become big, and then you want to be able to, you know, capitalize on it. And then also understand that, you know, there are periods in time where things are not always quite as crazy as they once were. But this cycle goes round and round. Consistency. Consistency is it's one of those aspects in the game where if you just do, and this is why I talk a lot about routine, that if you just literally chip away at doing a small amount of something every day, you'd be surprised just how much you achieve by the end of the month. A lot of people sort of, when they start to get into goal making, they look at it from the approach of, well, I've only got an hour a day. I'm never going to get anywhere. I'm never going to make millions of gold. But when you think about it, an hour a day is still 30 hours in just a single calendar month. You can do an awful lot in 30 hours. Just chip away at little small things, get your auctions listed, that sort of thing, but being consistent with it. Here we have crafting, repeating that process every day. Whether you're farming for an hour each day or you're crafting items to sell at a profit, same thing is true. Repeatable process which will produce long-term gains way into the future. And this is the thing: if you set up a lot of what I talk about is setting up that sort of foundation, that gold making factory per se, getting the factory built, and then when the factory is built, it's very easy to just keep it running. And you just churn out items and you sell a bunch of things and you're richer than you were before. It's a win-win. Knowing the markets. I love this side of things. This is the one thing that keeps me really engaged with goal making, is keeping track of, you know, things like the material prices, the supply and demand cycles of different items, and gaining that knowledge. Knowledge is king in this area. So a few things that Dallas said in this is, you know, a common mistake, can't talk today. Common mistake new goal makers make is jumping into a market they know nothing about. Knowledge is king. Knowledge is king. Either jumping on a bandwagon for a quick gain, or in turn losing gold because they jumped into the tail end of that high. Mage Tower. Let's talk Mage Tower in this one. This is where those people that really foresaw what the Mage Tower event was going to be had some absolutely crazy results, right? People were making millions of gold every day at the beginning of the Mage Tower because they bought their materials stupidly cheap. Their material prices were so cheap for one simple reason, that up until the Mage Tower launched, those materials were dead. Nobody cared about those materials, and so people had been picking them up for pennies, coppers at a time off the auction house, and they'd been doing that for a while. All the while knowing that soon as the Mage Tower comes out, everybody's going to want them and that they can charge silly numbers for them. If you try and jump straight into the Mage Tower now without the knowledge of, you know, the way that the market is working, you might end up doing exactly this. You might jump in once the high is already there and there is nowhere else for it to go but down. So being careful, being knowledgeable about the markets is really important as well. Don't lose gold. Don't lose gold? I think that's meant to be don't lose gold. Is something to know no matter what the market, method or system you're doing to make gold now and into the future. You should mitigate all potential gold loss. Oh, okay. I suppose this is just one of those simple sort of mindsets to be aware of that, you know, if you curb your spending, it's going to be much easier for your gold total to go up. But ultimately, there's a balance here, right? That you want to make gold, but there's usually a reason why you want to make gold, and just to have more gold is usually not the reason. There's usually a mount or a pet or a new piece of transmog or even another 30 days of game time. There's usually a couple of good reasons to why people want the gold to begin with. But yes, of course, be cautious to just how much you spend. If you're struggling to make more than, you know, a few thousand gold a day, maybe going out and buying that super rare piece of transmog is maybe not the most sensible thing to do. You could probably turn that gold into more gold, and then when you've got plenty of gold to spare, maybe then buy that piece of transmog. But yeah, don't spend too heavily. Curb your spending a little bit, and you will make more gold for sure. Long term over short term. The principle of something that should be taken note of. Say you're farming something, you do it for an hour. This might be good in the short term as materials tend to sell fast and give a decent return. Where is your supply though once you've sold? You'll need to farm another hour again. Yeah, this is often the difficulty with farming. The second you stop farming, guess what? You stop making gold. This is why I love crafting things and selling them on the auction house. My auction house is selling things 24 hours a day. Whether I am there or whether I am not there, as long as I put in that, you know, that time and that effort to keep the auctions listed, there's at the very least a chance that they will sell. Sure, people come in, they undercut. There's more nuances to it, but with farming, as soon as you stop farming, you stop making gold. You could argue that obviously there's the time it takes to sell the items that you farm, but fundamentally your overall value, your overall wealth is not increasing. And this is why I like farming patterns for professions. If you focus on getting access to a new pattern, once you've done it, you've got it forever. There's no... Patterns are not consumed in this game in any way, shape or form. If you learn how to craft something and you craft that item and you sell it, you don't have to farm that pattern again because you've still got the pattern. You craft it again and you sell it again. And the more times you repeat that same process, you end up with thousands of different items that you can craft. Very little reason to ever leave the auction house, and you can still make huge amounts of gold. And that's the long-term sort of gold making side of things. Farming is always very short-term. I think I always think about long-term thinking in systems that will make you win into the future. So I leave you with this. Make it simple, make it repeatable, make it profitable. This is how you will win moving into the future. Yeah, I don't think Dalla really went as far as to say, oi, you should probably be crafting, or you should probably not be farming. But that's the TLDR, or I think what he was trying to get to here, really. That you can sure make some quick profit very quickly and easily with farming, but ultimately it's not until you get into something that's repeatable, like crafting, to where you can really make it much easier going forward. Simple, repeatable, profitable. I like it. I like it a lot. Make sure you go check out Dalla. You can check him out on Twitter. He obviously has his YouTube channel here as well. I'm not entirely sure if he streams. If he does stream, I tend not to catch him. I think he has the UK internet problem that, you know, internet in the UK is trash, which I think is probably a bit of an issue when it comes to streaming. But his YouTube channel, you can check him out on Twitter. He's got his Discord as well. You can go say hi to him there as well. Let's move on then. What have we got next? We've got some preparation for patch 9.2. Lazy Goldmaker has put together one of his podcasts. This is The World of Goldcraft. This is going to be episode 160 of it. I believe this is the one I think I watched this live on his Twitch channel. He was talking about some of the preparation and some of the things to maybe start looking at, stockpiling, sort of thinking about stockpiling at least. Some questions are still unknown, or sorry, the answers to some questions are still unknown from the PTR though. We don't really know a lot about legendaries yet. We know that there's going to be a rank 7. We know roughly how we're going to make a rank 7 in terms of that we know that there's going to be a vestige of the Eternal that we're going to craft using a new material similar to that of the Korthite crystal. But what we don't know is just how we unlock the rank 7. We don't know how this new Korthite crystal material, the Progenitor Essentia or something, Pog Essence is what I'm calling it. We don't know how this new material is going to really play in terms of, is it going to be the bottleneck for making legendaries or not? We don't really know. There's a few more answers we need to a few questions before we fully understand what's going on, but that doesn't mean we can't start preparing for it. You can start stockpiling things that you absolutely know for a fact are going to be in demand. There's a new range of crafted gear. Well, there's 2 new ranks of crafted gear. One, Fire and Forget. You've then got the unique equipped higher item level version of it. We know that those are a thing. We equally know that those are going to use loads of materials. And so as you can see by Lazy's thumbnail, Shadowghast ingots are one to start stocking up on. There's not been a single patch in Shadowlands so far where you've not needed thousands upon thousands of Shadowghast ingots. Ore is getting really quite cheap now. You can start picking up the zone-specific ores kind of quite cheap, and you can start putting your crafter to work making some Shadowghast ingots. If you're like me and super duper lazy, you might just look for some good deals and buy the Shadowghast ingots, save you that crafting time, because you're still limited by how long it takes your blacksmith to whack away and make these things. If you want to buy 20,000 of them in one go, you often can do if you're ready and waiting for those right deals. But make sure you go check out The World of Goldcraft. He puts out a podcast, I believe, once every week on this, so it's worthwhile checking out. I think he publishes them on his YouTube channel, but he also streams it live as and when he's available too, so make sure you go check him out. The Minion of Grumpus, I don't need to talk too much about this, as this is Samadan highlighting one of my videos, so thank you, Samadan. We talk about the Minion of Grumpus as it is the Feast of Winter Veil currently. This is a mount that's only available for 2 weeks, but it's super valuable. Super duper valuable. Why? Because it's a pain in the ass to get. But I've put a little video together about exactly how you can get it, how you can farm it a little bit more effectively. It does require some use of the garrison. More importantly, it requires you to have leveled up your garrison. So actually most of the video is more talking about how to level up your garrison. But either way, if you can get your hand on a couple of these Minions of Grumpuses, Grumpi? What's the plural of Grumpus? If you can get your hands on a couple of these mounts, they tend to be valued somewhere in the region of 200 to 300,000 gold each. And, give it 6 months when nobody can get access to them and there's not many on your auction house, you could maybe even get away with charging more. And it's a cool looking mount. Big old gorilla dude. He's kind of funky. So check that video out if you haven't seen it already. And then finally, a little Merry Christmas from Samadan with his very festive looking beard. If you don't have a Christmas tree, then, make use of what you have got. Looking very dapper there, Samadan. Also, a big thank you to the WoW Economy subreddit for people who share their time and knowledge over there. The WoW Economy subreddit seems to have been quite slow recently, but I think that's because many people have decided to join the WoW Economy Discord. More people are savvy with Discord nowadays, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already. And once again, thank you to Sambadan for putting this little video together. But I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. This is going to have been episode, what was this, 207? Is this the 207th episode of this? Or edition, whichever you want to prefer to call it. Yes, number 207. This will be back in 2022. I will be back covering it in 2022. From me, have a good Christmas, have a good festive period, have fun, stay safe, and enjoy your goal making. I'll catch you all next time. Peace.